Hello and welcome in to the Retirement Playbook, brought to you by Alspaugh Wealth Management. I'm Brock Alspaugh, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Tony Shore. Hey, Tony, how's it going?
Brock the Rock Alspaugh, or the Allspark, as I like to call you. You've got the energy. You bring the energy. That's why you're the Allspark.
Allspark, sparking
Alspaugh, the
energy.
Allspark. I love that.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're really excited about this week's show, as we are every week, bringing you some great information to help you get to and through retirement yourself. And so we greatly appreciate all of our listeners. If you could please go to YouTube and subscribe to our channel, and you'll be updated on when the new episodes drop, as the kids say. And then also you can check us out on any podcast provider that you might use, like Spotify or Apple Music or anywhere you get your podcast. And then ultimately, folks, to get help and to understand where you're at, where you're going, and how we can help you get there, go to our website. It's alspaughwealthmanagement.com, alspaughwealthmanagement.com, ALSPAUGH, wealthmanagement.com. And you can check out past shows. You can look at our Roth conversion guide, our retirement income toolkit. Lots of great information on our website. And you can actually request an appointment with me as well. And you can just have a conversation over the phone if you'd like, or we can perhaps even schedule a consultation where we can go through all of your retirement aspects and answer any questions you might have and get you on the road to the right retirement. All right, folks. So Alspaugh Wealth Management, or give us a good old-fashioned phone call at 573-332-7855. All right, folks, this week we're going to talk about 3 retirement windows. Yeah, that's right. Windows, doors, and windows are the outside of the house. That's what you first see when you pull up to a house. And what we're doing today is talking about windows. And windows in the metaphorical form being that you have different times that you might consider how far out you are from retirement. Whether that be 10 years away from retirement, what should you be doing? We're going to answer that today. 5 years away from retirement, what should you be doing? We're going to answer that today. And guess what, Tony? The last one, 1 year away from retirement, what should you have done maybe, and what should you do at that point? We're going to talk about it today. So awesome. I'm really excited about it. Tony, how far are you away from retirement?
So anywho, anyway,
I mean, I feel like you're like 40 years away because you look so young.
You're right. It's my immaturity. It throws people off. They always think I'm younger than I am. But seriously, I'm probably looking at, let's see here, 10, 11, 12 years maybe away from retirement.
Okay.
11,
right?
11.
We can work with that.
If I was honest, I have to be honest, 10. But
probably more like 6. If you have to keep doing shows with Brock, it might be 4.
No, so. As long as my voice holds out, I'm not going to retire from this show. As long as you're willing to do it and I still have a voice, we're going to do the show each week. But beyond that, as far as retirement, I think I'm 11 or 12 years. But before we get into that, though, I have to ask you, Brock, now that we know who's going to be in the Super Bowl, this is a little sidetrack before we get started.
Here we go.
Yeah. Yes. Who you're going to pick?
Oh, I have no idea who I'm going to pick, Tony.
You're a big Chiefs fan, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. Here we go. We're doing the Arrowhead Chop. I love going to Arrowhead. It's one of my favorite things to do. I did not get a chance to take my son, Gavin. He is a huge Chiefs fan as well. I did not get a chance to take him to a game this year, but I did go to 2 games with Danielle, and we had an absolute blast. And actually, one of them was with Danielle. The other one was with some guys that we went with. So anyway, love the Chiefs. I love the fact that we're doing 3 in a row here. It's never been done. Right. And, I really think we're going to win the game. I know everybody's, the refs are helping you, blah, blah, blah. Get out of here with that malarkey. It's one of those things. Everybody gets calls against them and for them, whatever. But I'm super excited.
And you know what? Mahomes isn't too shabby as a quarterback.
It's one of those things, Tony. You can't explain it. You can't explain it.
He just looks lucky. Like he gets lucky. Like I don't know, it was last week's game or
See,
the week
that sounds
before where
ridiculous too. You
where
sound like
he's
the people
throwing a
talking about the refs, man.
where he's throwing that
That's
pass
not
though
luck.
into
That's
the
skill, man.
he's
He
being
is so
tackled. He's
skilled.
parallel to the ground and he throws a
It's
touchdown pass
He's
to the tight end.
insanely talented.
He
It's
is unbelievable.
unbelievable.
It is
It's
unbelievable.
it's
It's
the
true.
it's the Mahomes magic, man. I'm telling you.
The
He's just
Mahomes magic.
He's just
Yeah,
got it. You know, some people
he
are just
does.
really good at what they do, right?
Right.
And then you got people that are just elite, the Kobe Bryants, the Michael Jordans of the world. And
The
it's
Brock
just,
the Brock Alspaugh when it comes to wealth management. You're up there in the elite.
I just you know, it's just something. It's just something. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm super excited. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yep.
By the way.
Yeah, no problem. I
Okay.
know you'd be excited because the Chiefs are in it to win it, and
Oh yeah.
I have no
Oh, yeah.
doubt they'll win. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
they always make it look a little harder than it needs to be lately this year, but
I know.
you know, they let it get a little close. But I have total faith that they will win.
You know, it's funny you're talking about Mahomes, and it's like he's not even in the top 5 for MVP this year. Not even in the top 5, and yet
like
wins
the
15 games in
stats.
the regular season, and he's in
Yeah.
a Super Bowl again.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy just knows how to win. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter about the stats. It's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Listen, we got to get going here.
Yes, we do. I don't know why you brought up the Super Bowl, but go ahead.
All right. So, Tony, again, we're going to talk about the retirement windows.
Yep.
You know, because once you hit your 50s, man, you know, a lot of people are in that window now of 10 years are out.
Yep.
And so,
I'm
you know,
close.
if you retire at 65 and you're 55, you're in that 10-year window, right?
Yep. I'm
And
close.
so 10 years from retirement, 5 years of retirement, and 1 year. So we're going to talk about today about what you should be doing here to plan for this. The solid first step, by the way, if you're a decade away. So we're going to go 10, 5, 1 in that order. 10 is to decide how much income you'll need annually to secure your retirement lifestyle. Tony, I've said this a million times, right? It's not about how much money you have. It's not about how much money you have coming in. It's all about how much money you spend, right? So if you have $100,000 coming in and you spend 120, that doesn't work. If you've got $1 million, but you spend $300,000 a year, that doesn't work. So it's all about how much money you spend. You have to live within your means. And like last week, we talked about paying off your debt by the time you retire. It's so important, right? You're on a fixed income once you retire. You don't have this opportunity to make the money you were making when you were working. Okay. Now, that's not always true. We have several instances, Tony, where people will retire and they're actually making more money in retirement net wise because they don't have as much money coming out for taxes, for the gas bill to drive to work and back. And so there's a lot of things and a lot of reasons why that could be true. But the first step for sure is making sure how much money you'll need in retirement to maintain your lifestyle. A lot of people want to travel, especially those first few years of retirement, Tony. You've got to make sure you've got the money, you've got the income to be able to pay for that retirement lifestyle. Okay. And so again, making sure, but the 80% rule, 80% rule is simple. You build a financial strategy, the positions you maintain, 80% of the income you relied on during your retirement career. That's kind of a good starting. It's kind of like the 4% rule, right? It's a very general rule that is good. It's getting you started in understanding how much money you'll need in retirement as far as income. So what they're saying is 80% of your salary that you were making is what you would need in retirement to maintain your lifestyle.
Right. And that's the biggest part of what you do for your clients and why you're talking about it on the show. And that's where people need the help figuring out how much they're going to need, how they're going to reach that goal without making costly mistakes.
So then the next step is taking, okay, you need this much income, right, Tony? But now what dollar amount am I going to need to save to get to that income level?
Right. Exactly.
Right? And so what you want to do is obviously consider things like Social Security income, like pension income. Maybe you were a teacher and you don't have Social Security, or maybe you have both. By the way, they just got rid of the whole windfall elimination provision in January, this month. So, you don't have to worry about having that deduction from the windfall elimination provision if you were both a teacher and worked in the private sector, that you could qualify for both. As long as you have 10 years worth of contributing to Social Security, you might get both. So that's a big deal, by the way, Tony. I mean, that's going to help people.
That's huge. It's going to help a lot of people out there who were on government pensions, or
Yep.
teachers who didn't get Social Security as a teacher, but they did in other jobs or maybe with a summer job. And so before, they couldn't get the full Social Security amount.
That's
They were
right.
penalized,
That's
but
right.
they've removed that penalty, or the windfall elimination. They've
Right.
removed that starting this year, which is great.
Yeah. And one thing I didn't realize, so I'm glad we brought this up actually. One thing I didn't realize till this week is that they're going back. So they probably
Oh,
So in other
really?
words, yeah. So in other
So it's
words,
retroactively taking effect.
yeah. So listen, so for 2025, they're going to pay it out in December, is what I've been told.
Sure.
Is that they're going to pay out the difference in September. So you get a lump sum check. Kind of cool. But
Yeah.
now what I've heard is they're going back and doing 2024 as well. So
That's
you're going to
good.
get basically 2 years worth of this, the windfall elimination provision that they've withheld from your Social Security check. You're going to get 2 years worth of that here in December. So, or November or December, either one. So anyway, look out for that, and make sure, guys, let's invest that money, right? If you haven't
It's
counted
for
on it.
retirement. That's retirement money.
Bingo.
So you should put it in a retirement account to be used in retirement, or maybe open a Roth, do something smart with it. Don't put it in the general fund or your checking account where it's just going to go bye-bye, right?
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
yep, 100%. Invest that money. You didn't plan on it anyway, folks. It's really cool that they did that, and it's a bonus essentially.
Yeah.
And so you need to invest that bonus. Okay.
Bank the bonus, as you
Bank
always
the
say.
bonus.
You're going to get t-shirts made. Bank the bonus.
That is good. Maybe I should consider that.
I'd wear a hat that said "Bank the bonus."
So Tony, you'll be the first one to get one.
And the little Alspaugh Wealth Management on the back, around the half circle there.
He's not only a radio host, he's a marketing genius, folks. Tony Shore. So anyway, going back to our second, kind of tidbit here is, okay, now that you've understand like how much it's going to take, how much money do you need to save to create that much income? And again, these are some of the critical steps that we will help you figure out going forward. All right. So we talked about figuring out how much money you need to save. But then the next step, Tony, this is all if you're 10 years out, let's critically think about and get some answers to what is the best way for you to elect your Social Security benefits. Mm-hmm. Because maximizing those Social Security benefits, folks, can mean the difference of $100,000 and even $200,000 over your lifetime if you make the wrong decision. And if you think I'm wrong, if you don't want proof of that, call my office. I'll show you. Okay. But the point is that you need to maximize those Social Security benefits. There's nothing wrong with saying, okay, maybe we need to wait till full retirement age. Maybe we need to wait until we're age 70. Or maybe my spouse takes it before I do because, we want to make sure that the surviving spouse is taken care of. There's so many things that go into this. You have your own benefit, you've got spousal benefits, and you got survivorship benefits. And the one thing that most people miss, I think, Tony, is that they think about Social Security as a monthly income and a monthly check. And in fact, that's what it is. But over time, that adds up to be a certain amount over your lifetime. And that's really what's important. How much are you going to collect over your lifetime? Now, ultimately, we don't know how long you're going to live, right? And so that does come into play. If you have major health issues, I'm going to say your strategy is going to be different than what we would actually recommend if you didn't have health issues. Okay. So there's a lot of things that make this a very customized process. But the bottom line is this: maximize those Social Security benefits to have the best chance of success in retirement. Okay. All right. So that's the next one. Let's see. We're still on 10 years out. Is that right, Tony?
Yep.
Okay. You should check your current 401k lineup to make sure that your overall risk is in line. Tony, this is a big one because in the last 2 years, we've seen a big run up in at-risk investments. We like to think of money in colors, but really simply it's this: safe money, safer money, and then at-risk money. And most people's at-risk money has done very, very well over the last 2 years. And so you're kind of out of proportion, right? Maybe you're a little bit too risky because your at-risk investments have done so much better than your safer and safe money. So what do? Well, you just rebalance. It's real simple. Now, what I would say is that if all you have is a 401k, right? So if you're younger and you just have the one 401k, you can set up your plan to make it where it automatically rebalances your account. And here's my suggestion. Make that an annual rebalance, okay? If you rebalance more than that, it's okay. It's better than not rebalancing at all. But I feel like an annual rebalance lets your winners win, and then you still get that rebalance effect to readjust your holdings. So an annual rebalance is what I suggest. And so make sure you're doing that. But ultimately, just make sure you got it, right? Make sure that you're in line with your risk tolerance. If you need help with that, by the way, we do have a little website. It's called mycolormoney.org that you can go to, and you can answer these very simple 11 questions, and it will give you an idea of how you should be invested based on your risk tolerance. It's called our Color of Money Risk Analysis. And again, it's mycolorofmoney.org.
And so what you're saying there, Brock, is, just to reiterate on that for our listeners out there, you need to rebalance your risk as you go along into these different stages, 10, 5, 1 year, right?
Absolutely. So, as good question or good point there, Tony, is that as you get closer then to retirement, you need to continue to take these risk tolerance, questionnaires, and make sure that you don't want to be invested the same way at 50 years old as you were when you were 30 years old, right? And so I think that's a pretty common sense thing, but you'd be surprised by the amount of people that just, put the money away, which great. I'm glad you're putting the money away, but then we're just not paying attention to how it's invested. And we always think that, it's going to be okay because the market always rebounds, all this kind of stuff. And it does for the most part, but you got to make sure that you're allocated correctly so that the closer you are to retirement, you can still sleep at night knowing that if the market goes down, you're going to be okay over time, right? And so we don't want to experience a 2000 and 2001 and 2002 where the market was down 3 years in a row. And then all of a sudden we're left here going, I can't retire now, So again, understanding where you're at, where you're going, and how you can get there. That's the most important part. It's the process, folks. It's the process as to how you reach those goals. It's not just saying, okay, yeah, I want to retire at 50 or 60 or 65. It's how are you going to do that? What are the things you're going to do, the steps you're going to take to reach those goals? Okay.
And your clients and our listeners out there can take advantage of this as well. You have a tool that helps them determine what their own personal risk tolerance is. You look at where they're at on this journey, and you can help them with that. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We try to make it as easy as possible for people to get help. We don't want any excuses for people to say, well, I just didn't get it done, or I just can't figure it out, or this person lost all my money and blah blah blah. There's no excuses. There's people out there that can help you folks.
Yeah, you got to work with a trusted financial professional who's a fiduciary, and I'm not going to name names, Brock Alspaugh, but I know a guy.
What?
So Brock, where are we at on this? We've talked about the 10-year, and we talked a little bit about the 5-year.
Yep. So we're gonna come down to the 5-year now. So we've talked about 10 years out. What are the things you need to be doing? Again, these are things we talk about quite often, Tony. But what I will say is when you're 5 years out, taking the 10-year out, right? The 10-year tips. In other words, understanding how much money it's going to take for you to maintain your lifestyle. Is that number the same? And are we making adjustments to that? Are we accounting for things like inflation, like taxes that will ultimately affect how much net income you have? Because folks, it's not about the before tax number or the before inflation number. That could be severely affected. And we've witnessed this over the last few years. Sure. When inflation was at 10%, we were not buying the same things. We were looking for off-brand items, right? Because inflation was so high. And it's still high in a lot of areas, right? But overall, it has come down, and we're getting a little bit of relief. But the point is, you have to consider inflation. Because think about what even a 2 or 3% inflation rate would do over a 20-year period. And by the way, if you're 45 years old, you still have 20 years. Okay, so what your income is now, and your lifestyle now, we have to consider inflation because it's going to be double. Okay, so if it takes $10,000 a month for you to live right now, and you're 45, you're going to retire at 25, you better just consider on double that income. okay, is what you're going to need
Yep.
if that's your lifestyle need. So anyway, inflation, taxes, those are big things to consider when you're talking about, hey, I'm 5 years out. These are, what do we need to be doing here? All right. Same thing too. You need to make sure that if you're within 5 years of retirement, we're looking at things like long-term care. What are you going to do for your health care? What are you going to do to make sure that you don't run out of money in retirement? Okay. So having diversification in amount of in the way of taxes and allocation amongst your assets. So let's talk examples here. When we're talking about retirement dollars and using that money to withdraw for retirement, okay, we're talking about most of the time tax deferred assets. If you have a Roth, or if you're lucky enough to have a Roth 401k, okay, we're talking about tax-free assets now. Well, technically they're tax deferred until you meet the requirements, and then you can take it out tax-free. And then you have your after-tax bucket of money that is not specifically designated for retirement, but maybe it's earmarked for retirement. So it's money you're putting in on an after-tax basis. It gives you a little bit more flexibility to do some of the things you might want to do. And it gives you diversification amongst taxes, right? Because more than likely, even if you have a Roth IRA or Roth 401k, you're still going to have some of that tax-deferred money coming in from matches, from employers, those kinds of things. So, diversification amongst your tax buckets of retirement dollars is huge, and making sure you're diversified within your asset classes as well, okay? All too often, Tony, okay, we see allocations come in, and it's 95% large companies, okay? Now, I'm not saying having a majority of your assets that are at risk, or that, you should be more growth-oriented. Having 60% of your money or 50% of that money in large cap is a bad idea. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that when we see 90% of people's retirement dollars invested in large cap, we need to be more diversified, folks. I mean, and a lot of times that's U.S. large cap. Why? Because that's what's done so good in the last couple of years. Don't forget, having asset classes and investing in asset classes that have not done well can be it's proven to be a good strategy to say it's time to look at this, right?
Yeah.
So, again, being diversified amongst your asset classes is a huge one that a lot of people, that's probably the one that people don't understand the most, right?
Right. When they come in and you look at everything they've got, like a 401k over here or a 403b, and a traditional IRA here, maybe their spouse has this and this, and they're doubling up on so much.
Right.
They're canceling each other out
Right.
as far as their diversity strategy, and they're not as diverse as they thought they were.
Exactly.
Well, I'm
Tony.
in this and this and this and this. I'm all across the board, but in each one of those, they've got 40% Apple stock in each one. So they're too heavy in one area, which adds to their risk, right?
Exactly, Tony. You hit it right on the head there, which is you need to make sure that you're diversified amongst your asset classes. And if you have 4 different large cap funds, like Tony said, the chances are you're going to own some of the same exact stocks, right? So you're not truly diversified. So getting an X-ray report, or something we call the portfolio analysis review, to understand where you're at compared to where you should be from a diversification standpoint is critical, and we can provide that service, by the way. Okay. So one of the things, again, we're looking at is to make sure you're diversified amongst asset classes, amongst your tax buckets. It's huge. It's a big one. All right, Tony, that's a lot of the 5-year, the 1-year people. Listen, if you're 1 year away from retirement, that means you're probably in your 60s. Okay.
Yep.
And so when you're in your 60s, one thing you need to make sure of is long-term care. Okay. It's huge. It's a topic we've been talking a lot about significantly in the last few months, the last couple of years, really, and with our clients. And it's something that you can take care of at an earlier age now, okay, through some innovative strategies, okay? And one of the things that, again, talking to people that are in their 40s and 50s, killing 2 birds with 1 stone, as people say sometimes, and using out of the box ideas that are not traditional. Just, hey, I'm going to buy long-term care insurance when I get to 60 or 65, when I would actually need it, and then if you don't use it, you lose it, kind of thing. So long-term care has been a big one. Why? Because it's so expensive. right? What are you doing to hedge this cost? Because if you take all of this money that it's going to cost for your long-term care out of your portfolio, chances are you're going to run out of money.
Yeah.
So we need to hedge that risk. We need to be able to say, what are we doing to take care of that cost? And there's things you can do in your 30s, 40s, and 50s to take care of that so you don't have to worry about it when you get to retirement. And quite frankly, you wouldn't have to pay these huge premiums, for traditional long-term care that, a lot of people and a lot of companies have actually gotten out of that business.
Yeah, it's hard to find a traditional long-term care policy, and it's even harder to afford it. So there are these hybrid policies and hybrid strategies that you have that they've created to help people with this because it is an issue.
I did it myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did it myself, Tony. So I bought a life. Here, I'll just tell you what I did. I bought a life insurance policy. It's an index universal life insurance policy that I bought on my own life, and my wife did as well. We have a death benefit, right? So if something happens to me, estate planning concerns are taken care of, right? And my wife and family are taken care of from an income replacement standpoint. But then if that gets through that phase of not needing as much for income replacement because we're older and the kids are on their own, and then, we can use this death benefit, not the cash value, but the death benefit to use for my own long-term care needs. That's pretty cool, right? To be able
to use a hybrid policy. So it's like the money you're putting in isn't going to be wasted. The money you're putting in, you'll either be able to use or that death benefit that you're paying for, basically, you can use it if you need it for long-term care. You can start to use it for that as you get older. Or if you end up not needing it, it's not just a waste. It is a death benefit for your loved ones.
Exactly. Okay. Boom. And that tax-free ability to use that money. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Not only when I die, my beneficiaries get it tax-free, but I can then use it tax-free for myself. Okay. And so
that's huge.
Anyway, it's been a big revolution in the last few years with that. And so it's very popular and it's a strategy that I, talk to a lot of people about. Anyway.
Sure.
Okay. So we're running out of time. The last one I'm going to say is if you're 1 year out, again, not just long-term care, but your healthcare. Are you going to be eligible to be on Medicare A and B? Do you have the cost for Part B accounted for in your budget when it comes to your health care? So A is free, but B has a cost, a couple $100 a month. Then you've got to buy a supplement or do an Advantage plan.
And have a drug plan and vision and hearing and dental. So there are healthcare costs in retirement, even with Medicare.
Exactly.
There are deductibles and copays. So.
Exactly. So understanding what those are, we can help you with that as well. We have an insurance agency here. Jason Lee is very versed in this, and he can help you through and understand what your healthcare is going to cost in retirement. Just make sure you account for that. So those are the two big ones for the people that are 1 year away from retirement, Tony.
Yep.
I know we're running out of time here. So
I want to add one though, that covers all three gamuts, and it's so important at every stage. And that is, you need to be working with a trusted financial services professional.
Me?
Yep.
Oh, really?
Brock the Rock Alspaugh. So, it is true, though. Especially the further along you get, the more important it becomes. But it's critical from the outstart. It will save you from making costly financial mistakes. You'll be much better off and much more prepared for retirement. So before we go, Brock, how can our listeners get a hold of you and set up that no charge, no obligation consultation?
Yeah, so it's always important, right? The earlier the better that you start planning is obvious. But again, if you're within these windows and you need help and you need to consider to make a plan to help, understand where you're going, how you're going to get there, and how we can then help you get there.
Yeah.
Give us a call at Alspaugh Wealth Management, 573-332-7855. Or again, look us up on the web at alspaughwealthmanagement.com.
All right. Thanks, Brock. And listeners, that does it for today's episode of the Retirement Playbook with our host, Brock Alspaugh.